Donald Trump's anti-immigration crusade has once again run face first into the courts. Overnight, the Ninth Circuit Court affirmed a lower court's finding that immigration raids in Los Angeles appear to rely on racial profiling. The decision temporarily halts federal agents from making immigration-related arrests in the L.A. area without probable cause. The tactics that ICE have been using to make their arrests are also coming under increased scrutiny. More and more videos are emerging, like this one from March, obtained by ProPublica. It shows officers smashing through windows to arrest two brothers in Spokane, Washington. It's part of a major new investigation by ProPublica tracking nearly 50 documented instances of immigration agents breaking vehicle windows since Donald Trump took office. ICE stood by its agents, telling ProPublica, quote, "Our officers follow their training to use the minimum amount of force necessary to resolve situations in a manner that ensures the success of the operation and prioritizes safety." Joining us now to discuss this is Nicole Foy. She is one of the reporters behind this story. She covers immigration and labor at ProPublica. Nicole, this report is horrifying. The pictures, the reporting. I mean, I asked you on the break, like, how did you keep it together? It's just so, I mean, I'm so struck by just the suffering. I mean, I want to know, how do you interact with this material without just weeping?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely something you have to be careful of reporting, but because there is a lot of very forceful arrests, lots of children crying, loved ones begging for the person who's being arrested to be set free. But the truth is that this is all on social media for anyone to see. And one of the things that we really wanted to do with this story was that we knew that some people were seeing things on their Instagram. They've maybe seen one example of a video that really struck them because a mother was crying or a child was crying. But we wanted people to understand that it's happening at a far greater rate than they may realize, and to put it all together to ask people if they think this is acceptable.
I want to play another video that is part of your reporting. It shows ICE breaking the window of a mother's car. Take a look.
Pues no me voy a bajar.
Entonces le tiene que...
Si no me baja, si no,
no,
me, no,
know?
Deja que lo revienten.
No, if it's against... No! Oh, mommy! You guys cannot take her just because you guys
No
want
te preocupes, Karen, no te preocupes. Tranquilo. No te preocupes, mamá. Todo va a estar bien.
Tenga cuidado, tenga cuidado.
Gracias.
Watching, when I first saw that, I was struck by the calm of the mom in the car. That clearly it seemed almost like she, as many parents we know from the reporting, they had to prepare for this moment. What will happen to me? And how do I comport myself? How do I communicate with officers in that moment? And then I was also struck later to hear from our government that they alleged that she had MS-13 ties. In your reporting, in all the records that you have reviewed, have you been able to find any kind of criminal connection, gang connection for the family in that car?
We couldn't find anything. You know, there's not really necessarily a way to comprehensively look at this, but we checked local and federal records, and we asked ICE to explain. You made this claim about this mother that we can see who's very calmly getting out of the car. She even says thank you as the officer warns her about the glass that they've just shattered. We said, you made this really this really huge allegation. Do you have anything to back that up? And they've not given us anything, and they've also not explained it to the many other reporters that have been asking about this ever since this arrest happened back in March, and this mother is still in detention.
Nicole, you watch so much footage, and it has to be so hard just to see, but you picked up on patterns as to the behavior of ICE and how they proceeded with these arrests. Can you talk about what you learned about how they're operating?
I think one of the most interesting things that we learned is that At the same time that ICE and other officers for Border Patrol have been saying that, this is a reasonable use of force. We believe that this is something that we should be doing, and also saying that this is what they have to do in order to detain and deport the worst of the worst. This assurance that they're going after the worst of the worst. That's not what we found, even in just very small segment of arrests that involved times where they had to break a window open violently. Many people did not have criminal records. Many had children in the car or other vulnerable family members, like a pregnant woman. And sometimes they broke the windows of people who turned out to be U.S. citizens. So there is a lot of questions, I think, that is raised by this is how much of this is really targeted, like how the government claims, and how much of are these tactics really going after the worst of the worst, when certainly there are people with very serious crimes who have been arrested this way. But you can see many people who do not have that same background.
Nicole, ICE didn't invent breaking car windows. Police have been doing it since there have been car windows. And it's very fact specific as to whether or not it's excessive force. Everything depends on what the occupant of the car is doing. So in your reporting, do you find that these are people who are hesitating to get out, refusing to get out? Are they people who are trying to exit and ICE runs up and breaks the window anyway? Because it matters in determining whether this is excessive force. The existence of a warrant or probable cause is going to take them a long way, and any resistance is going to get them closer to the line where breaking that window will be upheld by the courts. Children in the car or not.
Yeah, that's a great question, because what we found is a range of things. There are people that we spoke to who said it happened so quickly that I didn't even know what was happening. Someone who was reaching for their ID as the window was being broken. Other people who were asking for a warrant and saying, can you please show me the warrant? You hear that in the video that we just watched with the mother, asking for a warrant and saying, I'm not going to get out if you don't have a warrant. The thing is that a car is a little bit different than a house. I think a lot of people, they have attended Know Your Rights training, and so they think everything that applies to a house is the same with a car. It's not necessarily the case. There may be some wiggle room there, but
there's not much.
There's not much, and so it does end up in that. And I will say though that there are also many other instances that we tracked of times where, for one reason or the other, immigration officers decided not to make the arrest, even though people weren't providing ID, but it's really unclear. And we asked them in many of these cases to explain why they chose to do that. They really only answered us for a few, and definitely not as comprehensively as we were genuinely wondering as well.
Quite an investigation. Nicole Foy, thank you.